Good morning. My name is Brian Collins. I have a design company in New York and in San Francisco, and this morning we're going to be talking about this. When I was a kid, this is one of my favorite movies. It was a precursor to all the disaster films you might watch today, but it's what happens when the planet Earth collides with another planet and devastation results. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit, getting a little personal. This is the town that I grew up in. I'm going to talk about how my world collided with another world when I was a kid. This is a colonial town. It was founded in the late 1600s in Massachusetts. This is what it looks like. It's bucolic. It's colonial. It has traditional New England architecture. This is me with my mother in 1960. All our houses look like that. All our neighbors had houses that looked like this, all small capes. And the entire neighborhood looked like this. Then in the mid-60s, about 2 or 3 blocks from my house, this house appeared. Now in Europe, this isn't shocking, but in New England, this was incredibly shocking. And then 2 blocks away, this house appeared. And then a couple blocks away, this house appeared. And these houses looked to me like the Jetsons. They looked like they had arrived from the future, ahead of schedule. I was amazed by them, not only because they looked like spaceships. Again, in Europe, this is not uncommon, but in New England, flat roofs make no sense. So when I saw these, I was astonished by them. And then, not only was I astonished by what they looked like on the outside, but the inside did not look like my New England home. It looked like something, again, that had arrived from the future. Now, the reason why was because of this guy. In the middle. That's Walter Gropius, one of the founders of the Bauhaus. And during World War II, when all of them left Germany, Walter Gropius moves to Cambridge, Massachusetts, 2 towns away from where I grew up. And he starts an architecture practice called the Architects Collaborative. That's them, all his graduate students at the Harvard Graduate School of Design. When I was 11, my neighbor took me to the Architects Collaborative. This is what it looked like. I saw my first Luxo lamp, I saw my first Eames chairs, and I thought, that's a cool chair. I'd never seen anything like this. It looked like something from Star Trek. So then the architect gave me a book when I was there that day because he knew that I loved art. And he said, Brian, this is a book on graphic design. This is a book on the work of the Pushpin Studios, the most influential design studio in New York City in the 1960s. And in it, I discovered that letters could be the strangest fucking things. An A looked like this. A whole alphabet. I was 10 years old and I was going out of my mind. Crazy letters. And crazy letters in combination with publications and posters and, book covers. This is the work of Milton Glaser. Milton Glaser, Seymour Cost, Paul Davis, Barry Zay, these incredibly powerful creative people got together in the 1960s to create what would be the future of design. Now, I lived in Boston, and between 1960 and 1975, incredible things happened. This is what Boston looked like. This is Scollay Square in the 1930s. And in the 1960s, in order to renew the city, which had, after World War II, never really took off financially, they did a huge urban redevelopment project, and they destroyed neighborhoods like this with bulldozers. And Boston did this. And they destroyed neighborhoods that looked like the one on the screen before. Here's what happened. This, instead of a colonial brick architecture from the turn of the century, this landed in Boston as well. It's an incredible example of brutalist architecture. It looked like something like a cross between Star Wars and Planet of the Apes, had arrived in a colonial city. And then this was open. This is called Design Research in Harvard Square, where it was created by another architect from a student of Walter Gropius's. And this is the place where you could buy futuristic, at the time, furniture. You could buy incredible Christmas decorations from all over the world. It was the first place in America that you could buy Marimekko. It was a place where architects and designers created stuff or made a store that you could buy design-oriented things, what we would consider design. The guy who founded it, Benjamin Thompson, loved really cheap shit, like an inflatable chair, and he also really liked expensive stuff, like George Nelson chairs. Now, when I was a kid, I went to this store. It opened when I was about 10 years old. And when I was 10 years old, the thing that I loved more than actually going into an incredible store like this was I was smitten by the crappiest, cheesiest, most horrible science fiction TV show you'll ever seen. I'm dating myself, but I would run home to watch this crappy show every day. Not that chair, but this show is what I loved. Lost in Space. It was the crappiest television show ever. They got to wear zippers and mylar. It was kind of cool. But instead of having cheesy adventures with robots and mylar and really cheesy monsters, after they had an adventure, they would all relax in their George Nelson chairs. I'm like, wait a second, I just saw that down the street. Doesn't that take place in the future? And my 10-year-old head was like, what? I didn't understand. So when I was a kid and I'm 10, I go, you know what designers do? Designers make the future. And then my dad that year took me to see this film, 2001: A Space Odyssey. And what's great is the space shuttle is flying through the air, is flying through space, and it lands, and you get to stay at the Space Hilton. And more important, you got to stay at this place called Howard Johnson's. Now, Howard Johnson's was a restaurant that was down the street from me in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense. Howard Johnson's was started in Massachusetts in the 1930s. This is Howard Johnson's. So I'm like, what? You're 10 years old. I'm like, what? That's in the future? But what happened, Howard Johnson's was the largest restaurant chain in America. You could go from coast to coast and you could plan your whole journey by hitting one of these Howard Johnson's. It was sort of like mid-century meets colonial architecture. The roofs were a combination of orange and the top was turquoise. So they were everywhere. They built them in Times Square. There were thousands of them all across the country. At the top of one, it was Simple Simon and the Pieman was the symbol. And there was a weather vane on the top of every one of them. And it said, "You're welcome here. Come on in." What was great about it is you could get 25 different flavors of ice cream, which was amazing because at the same time, and this doesn't exist anymore in America, getting stuff like this, while we were all sugared up, my parents could go to the bar and have a drink. So it was such an important part of American culture. Not only did Stanley Kubrick put it in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but the best episode of Mad Men took place at a Howard Johnson's. Howard Johnson's was planning the future, and they were well on their way. And then suddenly, in the early 80s, it vanishes. Gone. In a matter of about 10 years, Howard Johnson's restaurant is gone. This is what happens to it. Vanishes, vanishes. It didn't see this coming. It was not prepared for this. There's no plates, there's no sit-down restaurant, there's no service, there's not even knives and forks. All you get is a wrapped hamburger, and this destroyed McDonald's. McDonald's basically destroyed Howard Johnson's in less than 5 years. So what I realized is designers really don't make the future. We're in competition with it. And the three ways we're in competition with it now more than we've ever been. And they are, one, this is the CEO of Pepsi. The acceleration of change is incredible. The rule used to be that you'd reinvent yourself every 7 to 10 years. Now it's 1 to 3 years. Everything's being reinvented. I would say it's every year. Brand decline. For those of you who are fascinated by this, in November 2015, the Harvard Business Review had this chart. This chart is interesting. What it says is declining value of brands and the rise of customer relationships. What we do, what you guys do, is customer experience. What are people actually doing? What are they touching? What are they buying? What are they ordering online? What are they making? What action are you getting them to take? It's not the brand, it's the action. And this starts to change in around 2007, where the customer value, what people are actually doing, are far more important, increasingly more important than brand value. Complexity. When I was coming up, these are the things you needed to be successful. A good product, good packaging, good distribution, and good promotion and advertising. Now it's all of this all at the same time. So is it time for designers to step in to fix this? Sure. How many of you have seen all of these books? There are thousands of them. I could show you hundreds of them. Design thinking, design, design, design. It's everywhere. But here's what's going on too. These are headlines from Wired, Business Week, Fast Company. Big corporations are buying design firms in droves. IBM has invested $100 million to expand their own internal design business and the rise of the in-house agency. The Harvard Business Review does a story on design, the evolution of design thinking. Here's what's incredible. This is a class at Harvard University on design and innovation. It is not taught by anybody who you would consider a normal designer. It's taught by an accountant and an engineer. This, of course, is John Maida's timeline of a tech activity. A total of 42 design firms have been acquired since 2004 by Airbnb, Salesforce, Accenture, IBM. 50% of them have been acquired within the last year. So, and The Guardian, this is an article from last year, design is far too important to be left to designers. Thank you, leave the driving to us. We'll take care of it. So design people would enter design. I entered design because I loved design research. And I loved that stuff that my dad showed me when I went shopping in Harvard Square. Design, to me, is about this. But design has become money. Design has become lots of money. Now, design is so important that many business people believe that they understand design better than designers do. And now they're going to supply the same science, the same discipline, the same data analytics, the same rigor, the same discipline that they use in everything else they want to apply now to design, to drive it. Now, as a designer, I ask, who can help us out of this? Well, where everything's going to be so organized, there'll be no room for creativity and invention. And I found out my champion is Charles Barkley.
That's why analytics don't work at all. It's just a crap to some people who were really smart, made up to try to get in the game because they had no talent. Because they had no talent to be able to play.
I agree with you on that, Chuck.
So smart guys wanted to fit in. So they made up a term called analytics. Analytics don't work.
Here's what's interesting. Every business requires both discipline and passion. On one side, we have control, sequence, analysis, and rationality, which leads to expertise. We need expertise. But the other thing we need as creative people, and all of us are creative people, is we need this, the experimental, which is something fantastical, complexity, abstraction, and intuition and imagination. My concern is this. We need both discipline and passion to work hand in hand. What's happening, and I see this when these management consulting firms buy design firms, when large corporations buy design firms, what I'm concerned about, and I see this, because I see good creative people, as soon as those firms are bought, I see good creative people head out the back door, this is what's happening. Is discipline, structure, order, all the responsible words are now, in my mind, starting to kick out invention, creativity, and imagination, and wackiness. Can everybody hold up their cell phones for me? Hold this up. Ready? Hold them up. Do you remember, like 10 years ago, how many cell phones there were? Like 1 year, I worked with Motorola. They came out with like 25 different styles. We all now work in perfection shadow. What happened is all that crazy creativity got sucked up. In the process of correcting design flaws, distancing itself from the gimmickry of its peers, Apple left behind playfulness and personality. In the last 5 or 6 years, we've had one dominant tone, that Apple design is good, and the more a gadget looks and feels like an Apple product, the better it is. Now, I was lucky enough to have dinner at Steve Jobs' house one night, and actually, over dinner, he actually said this expression. I almost fell off the chair in the middle of having a vegetarian dinner. And he said, Apple should be, and everything we do should be, insanely great. Insanely great. That's a call to action. That's Katie barred the door. We're going to change the world. We're going to have a dent in the universe. We're going to make something people have not seen before. Let's go. That drove technology, it drove creativity, it drove innovation, certainly for Apple and for much of the West Coast in North America. Insanely great. Let's do that. What's happened in the last 5 or 6 years, this has been replaced by this expression instead. Let's do minimal viable product. What are you going to do today? I'm going to make a minimal viable product. What are you going to do? Minimally viable product. Here's what happens with minimal viable thinking. When I was a kid, this was the Apple product. No, now we're the Apple logo. Now we're very well behaved. Now we're this. Yahoo, remember this? Yahoo! Very well behaved. Looks like a Glossier or something, right? It looks like moisturizer. Remember this is kind of some fucked up flea market, right? Right? But no, we are now well behaved and precise, because we have a seat at the table now. Design is money. it isn't much fun. I love this, watch this. I love these crazy logos. Remember this great logo with the the wacky thing? Lenovo Landor logo, kind of tacky, italic, but cool. The Google logo is kind of wonky. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now that's just logos. Minimal viable product. We've got minimal viable thinking. I think what we need is creative people. We're all creative people. We need, instead of this as a metaphor, as a way of working, we don't need minimal viable product. What we really need everywhere is a maximum fucking love. And I mean that on purpose. Not like, oh, isn't that nice? No, I mean that. Maximum fucking love. Because my experience is in people who really care about their shit, it changes everything. When you really care about something, people feel it. We just got a CEO entrepreneur up here who she went and got like $35 million because she cares about what she does. It changes everything. Now, how do you create a place to do that? I'm going to talk to you. When I started our company and we started to have some momentum and we could see into our future, I wanted to design a place where we could make that happen. So I started our new office, which we built 2 years ago. I went in the chair that I got when I was a teenager was where I built the entire company around this chair that I fell in love with when I was 10, and I put it in the middle of our conference room, and I painted the ceiling the same color. It's also the color of Howard Johnson's. And I put it there, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to create the place that I first walked into when I was 10 years old, like the Architects Collaborative. Then I love books. Every assignment does not begin on Pinterest or Instagram, although I love both of those platforms. We begin in the library. We look through history. Who have solved this problem before? We begin at architecture, we look at philosophy, we look at biography, we look at poetry, we look at mythology, and we begin here, America offline. And then we have nooks and crannies we walk down to discover things. This is where we have breakfast every morning. But importantly, this is where we all work together, but importantly, this is a room that we've designed for children, because we let kids come to the office. In fact, we encourage them to come to the office. After 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon, the kids in the United States, this is unusual, but we have they can come and they work here, and their parents can come and work with them on their homework, but it's a room that's designed exclusively for them. If we don't create new models of working with parents, we're gonna lose the smartest women, and we're gonna lose the smartest men, because we need to create new models for them to be integrated with their families and their work lives. I got 4 minutes, I'm going to show you what we do. Let's see if I can walk my talk, right? So let's talk about 3 projects we did really quickly. How many people here use Spotify? It's insane, right? It is the music streaming brand in the world, and it's incredible. They came to us because they had changed their identity, and they had changed their identity about 6 months before they came to us, and they had worked through with a number of different design firms and advertising agencies, and every time they were doing it, everything was sort of unfolding. Nothing was holding. Everything was they were growing, and they had reached a point where they had reached saturation. They wanted to scale. They wanted to get big. They wanted to be the big player globally around streaming, and yet they looked like and be behaving like engineers in a technology brand. We thought they should be behaving like a music and an entertainment brand. This is what engineers do. This is the look and feel of the interface, which is black and green. So an advertising agency, which advertising agencies do this, make everything look alike, and you get that. Music doesn't behave like that. That's a tech brand. That's not an entertainment brand. It's not a particularly fun brand. It's not a fun brand if you're a creative person, because everything you do when you work on this brand ends up looking like that. You can't build a career doing creative work. Everything that comes out looks like that. And it was cold. What we said is music looks like that. Music, and the connection between music and art going back to the 1920s and 30s is incredible. We took from the music of design and music history. It was unbelievable, the work of Hypnosis in London, the work of global designers and artists and illustrators who did some of the most incredible things. The whole history of jazz is deeply connected to design and art. So we showed them that. The other thing is, just as we started working with them, Apple bought Beats, and they were like, oh no, they are streamers and they're musicians. They're the real thing. We're streamers, but we're engineers. I said, no, you're streamers and you're engineers. The history of engineering and music is like this. Thomas Edison makes music much more democratic. Dolby Their engineers makes music sound incredible. Mixing boards, the microphone, reel-to-reel, all of this stuff, electric amplifiers, electric guitars, those are created by engineers. You're working in a great tradition. The other thing that music is, it's a natural pharmaceutical. It's incredibly personal. It does one of two things. It makes you either feel more intense about what you're feeling, or it can change your emotional state like that. It is a natural pharmaceutical. Watch this.
Y'all know what it is. Katy Perry, Juicy J. Let's rage.
Yeah, there she goes. She knows what music does. So Spotify was just green and black. We said, no, you can't just be green and black. You got to be color, man, guys. You got to be everything. And then we looked at that. We looked, who else has solved this problem before? The Fillmore West in San Francisco was the center of the psychedelic movement in San Francisco in the 1960s. It was also the nightclub where everybody went. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin. But when Janis Joplin played at the Fillmore West, you saw two things. You saw Janis Joplin, and you saw that it took place at the Fillmore West. So you could see both brands at the same time. We get our images at Spotify from Warner Brothers, Def Jam, or all sorts of different music labels and musicians. In many cases, most cases, Spotify is not creating those images. They get the same images everybody else does. So how do we make our images unique to Spotify? We looked at what they did. They used crazy-ass color, duotones, tritones, psychedelic colors, intense fluorescent colors. How might we do that? So we did some quick experiments in our studio, and then we looked at Daft Punk, did some exercises and said, okay, that could be cool. Now let's add some jazz to it. Play, stop, record, and then we started to mix them up. By the way, we couldn't change the logo. They said, it kind of looks like a Wi-Fi signal. Can I change that, please? Nope. I said, all right, we'll change everything else. So this is what happens. We start playing this stuff. These are not our images, but it's our voice. We created a system that allows us to speak in the Spotify voice everywhere. And it's not the same note endlessly repeated. So the design language changes and evolves and moves. And all we're doing is taking existing images and kind of creating our own system with it in big things like billboards or the smallest things like banners, because we've designed it to work in the smallest expression as well. Now here's what we did. That's really hard to do, and we don't have time. The Spotify people were spending too much time doing this, so we created a programming system because we didn't want people going to InDesign, which is a black hole, and get lost. We coded a program that is unfuck-upable. So you get a photograph from Warner Brothers, you take it, you drop it into the Spotify colorizer instantly. You can want to do things with it. You can quickly colorize it and turn it with the color combinations that we've given, or you can randomize it and it'll make it for you. You can't fuck this up. It's not possible, and it's really, really easy. And we began our project, and from our very first creative brief, we had a coder work with us from the very beginning, so he could think this stuff through. So this is a piece of software we give internally. Every agency uses it, every public relations firm, every design firm, and everybody within Spotify uses it. And we can take it, we turn it into systems. Then we turn that same language into environments, and we launch it at South by Southwest. It's in Texas, so it needs wood. And so the design language sort of unfolds. So Spotify no longer looks like this. What I love about this, I don't know if this is our work or the designer's work. It looks like this. Now, for New York a couple of weeks ago, what you saw on the subways wasn't green. You saw this for about a week. And if you were smart, you knew who it was. Because at the end of the week, he showed up. So all of a sudden, it starts to live. And it feels like Spotify. One other quick thing. I've got 2 more seconds. We created this brand called EOS with our clients at EOS. In design, there are 2 ways of looking at something. Buy me, which is buy me, buy me, buy me, buy me, which is designed for grocery shelves, so everything looks like that. Or you can live with me. It's the same thing, but it's designed for my life. Our company wanted to help them make a whole line of products that worked with these. These are whatchamacallit? These are, this is a lip balm. How many people have lip balm? Hey, could you do me a favor? I have a bag right there. Could you grab it for me? Could you send somebody up with it? So lip balm, how many times do you use lip balm how many times do you use lip balm a day? How many? Once a day. How many people use it more than 4 or 5 times a day? Okay, you use it like 10 times a day, right? Yeah, you do. So here's what we did. We found out that women who really love it, they do it like 10 times a day. Just bring the bag up. Yeah, just bring the bag up. So they use it like 10 times a day. Here's what we found. We had them empty out their bags. Sorry, I forgot about that. We empty out their bags, and what we discovered, lip balms, everything is a cylinder shape, which was insane. So you can't discover it. What we found for people who are actually using it, thank you. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Get the other one. There's another bag. There's another bag in there instead. Just grab the bag. I'm sorry. I know, I'm high maintenance. I'm from New York. Thanks. Thank you very much. In Amsterdam, it's lovely. Look at this. Thank you, sir. In Amsterdam, it's great. You ask, pardon me, can you get me my bag? In New York City, you'd have to say, pardon me, could you get my bag, or should I just go fuck myself? So here's what we did, which is I just grabbed a bunch of these at CVS before I headed out the door. What we created was this other thing. Instead of them looking like this, they looked like that. I'm going to throw these, okay? Ready? Who wants them? So what they did, that's blueberry, that's peach. This is vanilla, ready? That's vanilla, strawberry and banana, mint, yeah, there you go, mint. Some more peach. And here, any more? Okay, 1, 2, and all in the back, 3. So we design these things with our clients at EOS, and they go insane. Here's what happens in America. They introduced 7 years ago. Multiple colors. And here's what goes crazy. People go nuts for them. People make 500,000 videos about them. They don't like it. They love it. Here's what they do with it. They do that. They do this. Here's what we found in Minnesota. We do a lot of work with an amazing company called Target in New York, based in Minneapolis. And we went there, and they said, by the way, do you know what's happening in Minnesota high schools? What? A girl will give a boy her favorite flavor, and he'll have grapefruit, she'll have tangerine, and this is what they do to signal that they're going out. They flop the tops. That's insane. They hacked our design. They love it. Last thing I'm going to show you, a project we did for Facebook M, which we're working with them. It's a personal artificial intelligence assistant within Messenger. Now, I love this stuff because I like AI stuff. I always wanted my own robot. This is close, because I'm going to get this year. So we created Facebook M. Working with Facebook, we created the identity system, which always flexible, always changes, is always infinite. It's human-assisted search. And it creates all these different things. So in the creation of the identity, because everything we're doing now is kinetic and it moves and it changes, the identity itself can always change and always move. In its static state, it evolves and changes, and it becomes all sorts of things. It becomes all sorts of marks. Here's what it can do. You can ask things like, can you help me order flowers for my mom's birthday? I'm going to Chicago next week. I'm looking for... Anyway, what it lets you do, it orders, it gives you an assistant. What I love about this, not only does it help you sort it out, it gives you a design language that's always changing and evolving. Our clients at Facebook were remarkable to work with. And we created a language that has sort of a dynamic, fun, and it's great, great fun. And the design language in static form looks like this. So in the end, a couple of weeks ago, that's my last point. So my sister called me, and she said, Brian, remember the Howard Johnsons we grew up with? I said, yeah. They tore it down. I said, yeah, I know. They tore it down a few weeks ago. Guess what I found? Like, what? I found that. And she sent it to me. And I'm bringing it to New York, and I'm going to put it beside my orange chair. Because I think what I love that, it's inspired so much of what I want to do. I also want to remember that we're in competition with the future all the time. It's coming at us fast. And the thing that makes us resilient and things that makes us strong is this. The best way to compete against the future is through the intense love of what we do and who we do it for. And I'm lucky that I get to do it with these people every day, the best creative team in San Francisco I ever worked with. And as Em would say, that's all pretty good. Thank you very much.